Dr. Alan Carter wiped the red dust from his goggles and squinted at the strange object half buried in the Martian soil. After 5 years of digging through the Valles Marineris, he had found plenty of rocks, but nothing like this. The crystal caught the weak sunlight and seemed to glow from within. "Olivia, you need to see this," he called through his comm. Dr. Olivia Mason appeared at the edge of the excavation pit, her white environment suit stained orange from the constant dust storms. "What did you find this time?" "Another weird rock formation," she asked, climbing down carefully. Alan shook his head and pointed at the crystal. "This isn't natural. Look at the edges, too perfect." Olivia knelt beside him. The crystal was about the size of a baseball, with smooth facets that reflected light in impossible ways. She reached for her scanner and passed it over the object. "That's odd. It's giving off radiation, but nothing harmful. Actually, nothing I've ever seen before." Alan felt drawn to the crystal. Without thinking, he reached out. "Wait, we need to follow protocol." Olivia started, but it was too late. As Alan's gloved finger touched the surface, his vision blurred. Stars rushed past him. Strange worlds appeared and vanished. Alien cities rose and fell in seconds. And through it all, he felt a presence, ancient, patient, watching. When the vision ended, Alan found himself lying on his back with Olivia shaking him. "Alan, can you hear me? You've been out for almost 2 minutes." He sat up slowly. "I don't know what I saw, but they knew we would come. The Curators." "Who?" "The ones who left this." He pointed at the crystal, which now pulsed with a soft blue light. "They called themselves the Curators." Back at Mars Colony Beta, they found more crystals buried deeper in the canyon. Each one held different information: star maps, mathematical formulas, biological data. Tests showed they were at least 250,000 years old, long before humans had even evolved into their current form. That night, Alan dreamed of stars again. But this time, he understood more. The Curators had been watching Earth since the first humans appeared. They had seen potential in humans that even humans didn't see in themselves. In the morning, he woke to chaos. The crystals had somehow connected themselves to the colony's computer network without anyone authorizing access. "It's like they're talking to our systems," said Paul Wright, the colony's head of security. "We need to shut them down." "No," Alan said too quickly. "They're trying to communicate. To teach us." Olivia backed him up. "These artifacts contain technology far beyond ours. We need to study them, not fear them." 3 days later, a message arrived from Earth. NASA and the United Earth Defense Force were sending a ship, the U.S. Horizon under Captain Frank Morrison, to bring Alan, Olivia, and the artifacts back to Earth. That night, Alan had the clearest vision yet. The Curators showed him their civilization, a species that had explored the galaxy millions of years before humans existed. They had found Earth when mammals were still small creatures hiding from dinosaurs. The Curators had seen something in those early mammals, just as they later saw something in early humans. Potential, curiosity, determination. But the vision also showed the Curators facing extinction, a terrible choice. They couldn't save themselves, but they could save their knowledge. They had left pieces of themselves, their legacy, scattered across the stars, waiting for species worthy of inheriting their knowledge. As the U.S. Horizon approached Mars, Alan understood one thing clearly. The crystals weren't just artifacts. They were a message, the beginning of a path. And humanity had just taken its first step into a much larger universe. The Curators had left their legacy to the stars. Now it was up to humanity to prove worthy of it. The U.S. Horizon floated above the red planet, its engines glowing softly against the black sky. Inside, Captain Frank Morrison watched as Alan and Olivia carefully loaded the crystals into special containers. "These things safe?" Frank asked, keeping his distance. The captain was a tall man with a face that had seen too many battles. He didn't trust anything he couldn't understand. "They haven't harmed anyone," Olivia answered, "but they're definitely trying to communicate." That night, as the ship began its journey back to Earth, Alan dreamed again. This time, the vision was clearer than ever. The curators showed him stars he had never seen, planets with impossible life forms, and technology that made human achievements look like children's toys. When he woke, Alan rushed to the lab where they kept the crystals. One of them glowed brighter than the others. "They're pointing to a specific star system," he told Olivia when she arrived. 43 light-years away. Olivia checked her instruments. The crystal's energy output has doubled overnight. It's like it knows we're taking it to Earth. Back on their home planet, the arrival of the artifacts caused a global stir. The United Earth Council held emergency meetings. Military leaders wanted to study the crystals for weapon potential. Scientists argued they represented the greatest discovery in human history. Dr. Patricia Wells, who was put in charge of studying the artifacts, allowed Alan and Olivia to continue their work. Patricia was smart enough to know that Alan's connection to the crystals was special. The curators were dying, Alan explained as he showed her the star maps he had drawn from his visions. Their sun was about to go supernova. They couldn't save themselves, but they could save their knowledge. "So they left these breadcrumbs for us to find?" Patricia asked. Alan nodded. "Not just for us. For any species that showed promise. The crystals contain everything. Their history, science, philosophy. It's humanity's inheritance, a legacy from the stars." Over the next few weeks, the crystals began to interface with Earth's quantum computer networks. They didn't hack or damage anything. Instead, they seemed to be upgrading systems, fixing errors, making everything work better. Some people feared this was the first step in an alien invasion. But Alan knew better. "They're helping us," he insisted, "preparing us." One night, as he slept in the research facility, Alan had the strongest vision yet. The curators showed him their final days, a beautiful, advanced civilization facing extinction. They had visited thousands of worlds, observed countless species. On Earth, they had watched humans struggle from caves to cities. The curators had seen something in humans that gave them hope: creativity, compassion, the drive to explore, but also something else: the capacity to choose a better path than the one they were on. The vision ended with a warning. Earth wasn't the only world the curators had left their legacy for, and not all who found these gifts would use them wisely. Alan woke with a start. Outside his window, he could see the night sky filled with stars. Somewhere out there, other species might be finding their own crystals, making their own choices about how to use such power. When the Earth Council finally voted to build a ship using the knowledge from the crystals, Alan wasn't surprised. The ship would follow the star maps to the system 43 light-years away. "We're calling it the Starseeker," Patricia told him, "and we want you to lead the mission." Alan looked at the latest crystal they had found. It pulsed with blue light, almost like a heartbeat. "We don't have a choice," he said. "The real journey is just beginning." The Starseeker stood tall in its launch bay, gleaming under the bright lights. It was unlike any ship humans had built before. Using the curator technology, engineers had created something that could travel faster than anyone thought possible. Alan walked around the ship with Olivia, Frank, and Patricia. They would lead a crew of 30, a mix of scientists and military personnel. "She's beautiful," Frank said, touching the smooth hull. Even the tough captain seemed impressed by what humans could build with just a small piece of curator knowledge. Not everyone on Earth was happy about the mission. Several countries worried about what they might find out there. Some religious groups claimed the crystals were evil, and powerful business leaders feared the new technology would make their companies worthless. "We have to go," Patricia told the Earth Council at their final meeting. "If we don't follow this path, someone else will. The curators chose us for a reason." The night before launch, Alan couldn't sleep. The crystals they were bringing aboard the ship seemed excited, glowing brighter than ever. He placed his hand on one and immediately fell into a vision. This time, he saw other worlds where curator artifacts had been found. Some species studied them peacefully. Others used the knowledge to build weapons. The vision showed him a particular race, tall beings with gray skin who had found their crystals decades ago. Alan woke with a cold sweat. He grabbed his comm and called Patricia. "We're not the only ones out there following the breadcrumbs," he said. "And not all of them are friendly." Launch day arrived with clear skies. Millions watched around the world as the Starseeker rose without flames or smoke, the Curator drive humming with power that seemed to bend space around the ship. Once they cleared Earth's orbit, the real journey began. The crystals interfaced with the ship's navigation system, guiding them toward the star system they had pointed to. "At our speed, we should reach the Curator system in about 8 months, Olivia told the crew during their first meeting in the ship's main hall. Life aboard the Starseeker fell into a routine. The scientists studied the crystals, learning more each day. The military personnel trained for whatever they might find. Frank ran daily drills, preparing for both peaceful meetings and possible threats. Alan spent hours with the artifacts, his connection growing stronger. He learned to control the visions now, to ask questions and receive answers through images and feelings rather than words. The Curators were dying out, he explained to the others. Their species was millions of years old. They had explored most of the galaxy, learned almost everything there was to know. Why didn't they just save themselves? Frank asked during one evening meal. Alan shook his head. Their time was ending naturally, but they wanted their knowledge to live on. They searched for species with potential, creativity, compassion, curiosity. They found several, including early humans. "So they left us gifts," Patricia said. "Their legacy." "Yes, but with a purpose," Alan replied. "They believe the universe needs guardians, species who would protect knowledge and use it wisely, not for conquest or destruction." 6 months into their journey, Alan received a new vision that woke him from sleep. He saw the gray-skinned beings again. They called themselves the Vrex, and they had found Curator artifacts a century earlier. But unlike humans, they saw the gifts only as weapons to conquer their neighbors. And somehow, they knew about Earth now. They had detected the Starseeker. Alan rushed to the bridge, where Frank was on night watch. "We need to be careful," Alan said, his voice tight with worry. "We're not alone out here. And we're being hunted." 8 months into their journey, the Starseeker approached a binary star system. 2 suns circled each other in a slow dance of light. The crew gathered on the bridge to watch this beautiful sight. "There's a planet in the habitable zone," Olivia said, checking the ship's sensors. "It has water and an atmosphere we could breathe." Frank looked at the readouts with suspicion. "Seems too perfect. I don't like it." Alan felt the crystal in his pocket grow warm. The Curators were trying to tell him something. Before he could focus on the message, alarms blared across the ship. "Unknown vessel approaching at high speed," said Kelly, the ship's sensor operator. Her fingers flew across the controls. "It's big, really big." On the main screen, a ship appeared. It was 3 times the size of the Starseeker, with sharp angles that made it look like a predator. "Vrex," Alan whispered. The ship matched what he had seen in his visions. Frank took command. "Battle stations. Power up shields." The Vrex ship fired first. Energy beams sliced through space, hitting the Starseeker's shields. The human ship shook violently. "Shields down to 60%, Kelly reported. "One more hit like that, and we're in trouble." Alan felt the crystal in his pocket burning hot now. Without thinking, he pulled it out. The crystal glowed bright blue, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. "What are you doing?" Patricia asked, steadying herself against a wall as the ship took another hit. "I don't know yet," Alan answered honestly. He closed his eyes and opened his mind to the crystal. Immediately, He saw schematics, patterns, energy flows. The curators were showing him something. A defense system hidden within the artifacts they carried. Alan rushed to the ship's central computer, pushing past crew members preparing for battle. He placed the crystal against the main console. Blue light spread through the ship's systems like veins. "What did you do?" Frank shouted as the ship shuddered again. Before Alan could answer, the Starseeker changed. The shields glowed brighter. New weapons emerged from hidden compartments in the hull. "Firing controls online," Kelly said in surprise. "But I don't recognize these weapons." Frank didn't hesitate. "Fire everything we've got." The Starseeker's new weapons released pulses of energy that passed right through the wreck's shields. The enemy ship pulled back, damaged but still dangerous. "They're retreating to regroup," Frank said. "We need to move now." They escaped the binary system, using the Curator drive to jump farther than ever before. When they stopped, they were near a small blue planet. "The ship's pretty damaged," Olivia reported after checking the systems. "We need time to repair." They received a signal from the planet below. To everyone's surprise, it was in a language the ship's computer could translate. "They're called the Nilari," Alan said, the crystal showing him images of the planet's inhabitants. They found Curator artifacts too. But unlike the Vrex, they chose a peaceful path. The Nilari welcomed them to their world. They were tall, slender beings with 4 arms and skin that changed color with their emotions. They had been studying Curator technology for decades. "You are not the first to visit us," said Zira, a Nilari leader. "The Vrex came years ago. They demanded our Curator artifacts. When we refused, they attacked." "How did you survive?" Frank asked. Zira's skin shifted to a deep purple. "The Curators left us defensive technology too. We drove the Vrex away, but they will return. They always do." That night, Alan shared what he had learned with his crew. The crystals weren't just knowledge. They were tests. The Curators had left their legacy to many species, watching to see who would use it wisely. "The Vrex failed the test," he explained. "They used the gifts for conquest. The Nilari passed. They used them for protection and growth." "And humans?" Patricia asked. "Have we passed?" Alan looked at the crystal in his hand. "We're still being tested." The Curators called worthy species guardians. They believed the galaxy needed protectors who would preserve knowledge and foster peace. "So what do we do now?" Frank asked. "We form an alliance," Alan said, "with the Nilari and any other peaceful species who found the Curator legacy, because the Vrex won't stop with us." As if answering his words, a message came through from Earth. It was broken and filled with static, but the meaning was clear. Earth was under attack. The message from Earth played again on the main screen. Admiral John Porter's face looked tired and afraid. "Unknown ships have entered our solar system," he said through the static. "They're not responding to our signals. Our defenses air." The message cut off. Frank slammed his fist on the console. How long to get back to Earth? "Even with the Curator drive, at least 3 weeks," Olivia said. Alan turned to Zira, the Nilari leader. "We need your help. Earth doesn't have the defenses to stop a Vrex attack." Zira's skin shifted to a deep blue, which Alan now knew meant determination. "The Guardians must stand together. We will send ships with you." Over the next day, a plan formed. The Nilari would provide 3 ships to travel with the Starseeker. Together, they would try to reach Earth before the Vrex could do too much damage. While the ships prepared to leave, Alan and Olivia worked with Nilari scientists to unlock more secrets from the artifacts. In a large laboratory beneath the Nilari capital city, they compared the human crystals with the Nilari versions. "They're slightly different," Olivia noticed. "The Curators must have customized each set for the species that would find them." A Nilari scientist named Trell showed them records of other species who had received artifacts. "We know of 12 in total," he said. 7 chose the path of guardians. 4 followed the Vrex path of conquest. One destroyed themselves trying to use the power too quickly. Elen placed his hand on one of the crystals. Instantly, he saw how the artifacts across the galaxy were connected, like pieces of a vast puzzle. Each piece held different knowledge, but together they formed something greater. The Curators had a bigger plan, he told the others. The artifacts aren't just separate gifts. They're meant to work together. The fleet departed the next day. The Starseeker led the way, with 3 sleek Niluri ships following. As they traveled, Alan spent hours with the crystals, learning more about the Curators' plan. They knew their civilization would end, he explained to Patricia and Frank one evening. But they believed knowledge was sacred. They wanted to preserve it through worthy successor species. Why not just give everything to one species? Frank asked. Too risky, Alan replied. If that species failed or misused the knowledge, everything would be lost. This way, different species get different pieces. Only by working together can they access the full legacy. 2 weeks into their journey back to Earth, something strange happened. All the artifacts on the ship activated at once, glowing with intense blue light. Through the ship's communications, they learned the same thing was happening on the Nilari vessels. It's happening across the galaxy, Zira told them via video link. The awakening has begun. Alan felt knowledge pouring into his mind faster than ever before. Images, formulas, histories of 1,000,000 worlds. His body couldn't handle it all at once. He collapsed to the floor, shaking. When he woke hours later in the medical bay, something had changed. He could feel the Curator presence in his mind, not controlling him but sharing space, like a passenger. How do you feel? Olivia asked, scanning him with medical equipment. Different, Alan said. Like I'm more than myself now. I understand things I didn't before. A Nilari doctor explained what had happened. The awakening is part of the Curator plan. Those who have been in close contact with the artifacts become vessels for pieces of Curator consciousness. Not a full transfer, but enough to pass on critical knowledge. When they reached Earth's solar system, they found chaos. Vrex ships surrounded the planet. Earth's defenses were holding, but barely. We're too late, Frank said, watching the battle on the main screen. No, Ellen replied. His eyes glowed slightly blue. We're right on time. There's something the Curators left in this system that can help us. Something hidden beneath the ice of Europa. The Curator knowledge in his mind showed him a vast complex built millions of years ago. A place where humanity's most important ally was waiting. The Starseeker and the 3 Nilari ships moved quickly through Earth's solar system, staying hidden behind the larger planets to avoid Vrex detection. Through the main viewport, they could see Earth surrounded by the sharp, angular ships of the enemy. How bad is it? Frank asked as they received updated information from Earth's defense forces. The Vrex have destroyed our moon bases and most of our orbital platforms, Patricia said grimly. Earth's shield technology is holding, but it won't last more than a few days. Alan stood silently, his eyes slightly glowing with the blue light of Curator knowledge. Since the awakening, he could access information that had been locked in the artifacts for thousands of years. He saw Earth not as it was now, but as the Curators had seen it millions of years ago. And he saw what they had left beneath the ice of Europa. We need to split up, he finally said. The Nilari ships should join Earth's defense forces. Give them the shield upgrades we developed. The Starseeker needs to go to Europa. Frank shook his head. We can't abandon Earth now. We're not abandoning it, Alan replied. We're finding the one thing that might save it. The Curators built an outpost in our solar system. It's been waiting all this time. Zira's face appeared on the communication screen. The Vrex will detect any ship that approaches Earth. We can create a diversion, but it must be perfectly timed. They made their plans quickly. The Nilari ships would attack the Vrex fleet from behind, drawing attention away from Europa. The Starseeker would slip past and reach the icy moon. As they approached Europa, Alan guided Frank through a complex flight path. There, Alan pointed to a seemingly ordinary patch of ice. Beneath that area, the Starseeker landed gently on Europa's surface. Alan, Olivia, Frank, and Patricia put on their environment suits and stepped onto the icy surface. The temperature was nearly 300 degrees below zero, and Jupiter loomed enormous in the black sky. Alan placed one of the crystals on the ice. Blue light spread outward in a perfect circle. The ice began to part, opening like doors to reveal a tunnel leading down. "The Curators built this?" Patricia asked in awe. "Yes," Alan replied. "It's been here longer than human civilization." They descended into the tunnel. After walking for 10 minutes, they'd reached a vast chamber carved into Europa's ice. In the center stood a structure that looked like a giant crystal, glowing with soft blue light. "What is this place?" Frank asked, his voice quiet with wonder. "It's a beacon," Alan said, approaching the crystal. "And a weapon. The Curators left outposts like this near all the worlds they seeded with their artifacts. If those worlds were ever threatened, the outposts could be activated." Alan placed his hand on the giant crystal. Immediately, it pulsed with bright light. The entire chamber hummed with energy. "What's happening?" Olivia asked. "I'm waking it up," Alan said. His voice sounded different now, deeper with echoes of something ancient. "The Curator consciousness within me is connecting to the outpost." On the surface of Europa, energy began to gather. A beam of blue light shot from the moon toward Earth. When it reached the planet, it spread across the atmosphere, creating a shield unlike anything humans had built. Inside the chamber, Alan watched through the Curator knowledge as the shield expanded. He could see the Vrex ships firing at Earth, their weapons now harmless against the ancient defense. "The shield will hold," he told the others. "But it's not enough." The Curators knew the Vrex might find Earth someday. They left more than just a shield here. The giant crystal split open, revealing a control room within. Strange symbols covered the walls, but Alan could read them now. He moved to a central platform and placed his hands on 2 glowing panels. "What are you doing?" Frank asked, watching as the symbols began to glow brighter. "Calling for help," Alan replied, "from the other Guardians." Across the galaxy, on worlds where other species had chosen the path of the Guardians, similar outposts activated. The Curator network, dormant for hundreds of thousands of years, was awakening. And deep beneath Europa's ice, something else was waking up too. The last Curators, preserved in stasis since before humans walked the Earth, were beginning to stir. 3 days after the shield activated, the tide of battle turned. Ships from 5 different Guardian species arrived in Earth's solar system, answering Alan's call. Together with Earth's forces and the Nilari, they drove the Vrex fleet back. On the bridge of the Starseeker, now orbiting Earth, Alan watched as the last Vrex ships jumped away into deep space. "They'll be back," Frank said. "The Vrex don't give up easily." "But we'll be ready next time," Patricia added. "And we won't be alone." Alan nodded. The call through the Curator network had brought allies they never knew existed. The Tella with their living ships, the Morvani with their advanced weapons, and others. All species who had found Curator artifacts and chosen the path of knowledge over conquest. But Alan's mind was elsewhere, back on Europa. In the chamber beneath the ice, the stasis pods had begun to open. The last Curators were waking up. A week later, a small group from Earth traveled to Europa. Alan, Olivia, Frank, and Patricia were joined by Admiral Porter and representatives from the United Earth Council. The Nilari sent Zira and 2 of their scientists. The other Guardian species sent observers as well. Together, they descended into the chamber beneath the ice. The giant crystal now glowed with a steady light, and the stasis pods around the edges of the room stood open. In the center of the chamber stood 3 beings. They were tall and slender, with skin that seemed to shimmer with starlight. Their eyes were large and completely black, like pieces of the night sky. "The Curators," Alan whispered. One of the beings stepped forward. When it spoke, The words formed directly in everyone's minds. "We have slept a long time," the curator said, waiting for the right moment to wake, for the hares to prove themselves worthy. Admiral Porter stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth, we thank you for the knowledge you left us. It saved our world." The curator's gaze moved over the gathered species. "Not just your world. Many worlds. That was our purpose." Alan felt the curator consciousness within him stir, reaching out to its original source. "You knew your civilization was ending," he said, "so you seeded the galaxy with potential successors." "Yes," the curator replied. "Our time in this galaxy was coming to its natural end. But our knowledge, that could live on, through you. All of you." The curator moved to a wall of the chamber and placed a hand against it. The ice melted away, revealing a door. Beyond it lay a vast complex stretching for miles beneath Europa's surface. "This is our true legacy," the curator said. "Our complete library of knowledge. The combined wisdom of a civilization that explored this galaxy for millions of years." Zira moved closer. "You left parts of this knowledge in artifacts across the galaxy. Why not give it all to one species?" "A test," another curator explained. "To see which species would use our gifts wisely. To see which would share rather than hoard. Which would protect rather than conquer." "The Vrex failed this test," the third curator added. "Others, like the humans and Nilari, passed. Together, you will be stronger than any one species alone." In the days that followed, the representatives from Earth and the other guardian species explored the curator complex. They found technology beyond their understanding, histories of 1,000,000 worlds, and knowledge that would take generations to fully comprehend. On the 10th day, the curators gathered them in the central chamber again. "Our time truly ends now," the first curator said. "We have awakened only to pass on our remaining knowledge directly. To complete the transfer we began with the artifacts." "What will happen to you?" Alan asked. "We will fade," the curator replied simply. "But what we knew, what we learned, will live on in you. In all of you. You are the new curators of this galaxy." The curators began to glow with intense light. The consciousness that had been within Alan expanded, joining with similar presences in others who had connected deeply with the artifacts. As the light faded, the curators were gone, but their knowledge remained, preserved in the minds of those they had chosen and in the vast library beneath Europa's ice. Standing in the now empty chamber, Alan looked at the representatives of Earth and the other guardian species. Their journey was just beginning. Together, they would explore the stars, protect knowledge, and perhaps someday pass on their own legacy. They were the heirs to the stars, the new curators of the galaxy.